Welcome to the Ad Nauseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 88 of the Ad Nauseam podcast. My name is Dr. Jeff Winkle, and I am here in Vomitorium South, down in the bunker.
Yes, we're in a new location, aren't we?
A new location, and I'm here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Dr. David Noe. How you feeling tonight, Dave?
I'm doing well, Jeff. It's a delight. It's a pleasure. It's a gaudium to be back at it with you this evening.
Yes. Yeah, we've been away from it it feels like a bit of a spell.
I think it's about 10 days, maybe even almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I know the audience was waiting with bated breath or bait-like breath. I never understood that.
Yeah.
It's got to be some word I don't understand.
Baited.
But what does that mean?
I don't know.
It must be derived from a verb of some sort, because who wants breath like bait?
Bait. Yeah, it's got to be something. It's got to be something else. Yeah,
Definitely.
I've never liked that phrase.
I haven't either.
No.
But they're waiting to hear what we're going to say about Vergil and his Aeneid.
Yes, they are. But I think they'd also like to hear about what you've been up to the last few days. You've been at the Latin...
the colloquium.
The colloquium.
You keep calling it, with more than your typical derision, the jamboree.
I was excited to go to a jamboree.
Listen to how you already sound defensive. Big shirtless Ron.
Yeah. Did he attend the colloquium? The colloquium. I'm sorry.
The colloquium See, I can't say it now. The colloquium Latinum aestivum.
Yes. Yeah. And so, tell us about it. How did it go?
I think you should explain to the audience, please, the big shirtless Ron reference first.
That comes from some old Simpsons episode where there was the show within the show was something like Yeehaw.
Yes, they were making fun of the old Hee-Haw show.
Hee-Haw, right? And so they had he was part of the cast of characters that just kind of flashed on the screen. There was Hip Diddler. And then big shirtless Ron. And that's been something that we've thrown back and forth over the years.
He was there for the ladies, right? That was the idea.
Yeah.
It can't be all male eye candy was the notion.
Yes, exactly.
Big shirtless Ron.
Right.
He was not at the Latinum.
Okay.
The colloquium Latinum aestivum.
Yeah.
It went great. We had 10 individuals, 10 students and myself, and then a lovely hospitality staff made up of members of my family, and we Latined for 5 days.
Wow, 5 days.
It was intense. We had 6 hours of instruction per day.
Okay.
We began on Monday with Cicero. We read a couple of his letters, one to Pompey, another one to an individual I'm not remembering right now. And then we read a portion of his De Officiis, in which he's telling the story of Themistocles and Aristides and their dealings with the Persians. Then Tuesday, we moved on to St. Augustine, and we read portions of his De Agona Christiano, the Christian contest. That was quite good. It's deliberately written in easy Latin.
Really?
Yes.
By the man himself.
Augustine wrote it to try to make it approachable, and so there's less of the high-flown rhetoric for which Augustine is deservedly famous.
Right. Interesting. And so was this conducted in spoken Latin?
We did a little bit of that,
Okay.
but not a lot, honestly. We were, read a little bit, translate a little bit, discuss. I got a lot of grammatical questions. I got a lot of questions about vocabulary, and did some analyzing and so forth with the sentences, little diagramming.
Yeah.
And just a wonderful, wonderful group of folks getting together, coming from all over the country, actually. We had some individuals from the Carolinas.
Oh, wow.
One individual has just a really charming North Carolina accent. Imagine him reading Cicero.
Oh, I love imagining that.
It was great.
Yeah.
And a woman joined us from Portland, Oregon. We had some folks from Illinois and Missouri and Indiana, some Michiganders. So we really ran the gamut.
Fantastic. Now, were these all Latin per diem students of yours, or is this?
Yes, most of these folks. Go ahead.
No, or was it going to open to anybody that wanted to sign up?
Right. Well, it was open to anyone.
Yeah.
And I have to say, demand a little bit exceeded supply. So I had to turn away a few individuals, but we're planning to do it again next year.
Fantastic. Well, that's a good problem to have.
It was excellent, yeah. And then can I go on with the rest of the week?
Yeah, please. Yes.
Okay. So
what else did you read and
study?
So
Wednesday was St. Thomas Aquinas, and we did some of his Summa Theologica, only a tiny portion. And if any of the audience has read any Aquinas before, Cicero is a person who doesn't always have something profound to say, but he always says it brilliantly.
Yeah.
Aquinas is someone who always has something profound to say, but it is written in very workmanlike Latin.
Is that right?
It's very flat. I don't think it has any charm, but it's profound.
Now, does it have to? I don't want to go off in too much of a tangent, but does it have to do more with kind of old Tommy himself, or was it that Latin by the time he was writing had kind of degraded to a certain degree?
It's a combination of both, really. So not so much Tommy himself, you might say, but that he was not interested in putting any charm in what he's writing.
Okay.
It's very direct, plain, simple. He's interested in the ideas. There's a little bit of style here and there.
Yeah.
But the second point is the genre, of theology at the time had no charm. It was just written in a very plain manner.
Yeah.
This was pre-Renaissance. So
Right.
depending on one's perspective, I think it's a Latin that is not nearly as pleasing. As I said to the class at the end of the day, I really like what Aquinas is saying because it's fascinating, but I find myself wanting to read Ovid.
Yeah.
Because, maybe this is just a moral weakness on my part, but I like being entertained by literature.
Of course, right.
And, Aquinas is good for a really good think.
Yeah.
Philosophical and theological issues, and a great theologian.
I know nothing about like the biography of Aquinas, but does that style of Latin fit with kind of what we know of his persona? Was he kind of dry and to the point, or
I don't think we could probably make that
kind of connection?
No, I don't know. So 13th century, 1225, 1275, the angelic doctor, and he taught in Paris, and very important figure, someone I admire a lot.
Yeah.
Thursday we go on to Erasmus.
Oh, we've talked about Erasmus on this show.
We were reading his work called De Copia, and that was a tough one to translate. De Copia. If you look it up in the dictionary, it means abundance, plenty, supply.
Yeah.
But how are you going to get that out as a title when he's talking about De Copia rerum et verborum, right? So an abundance of subjects and of words. Mm-hmm. One of the suggestions was imagination, because what he's trying to teach you how to have a mind that's full of both ideas and then the words to express them.
Okay.
And of course, Erasmus, he can't write a single sentence without showing off.
Oh yeah, right.
Everything is just 4th of July constantly. It's verbal fireworks all the time.
Did the students enjoy that aspect of it? Or?
It was exhausting. So I think they did enjoy it and they did admire it, but some of them said, it was very ecumenical. We had about half Protestants, half Catholics. As it turned out, this was not in any way a requirement of the week, but they all turned out to be, persons of faith.
Okay.
They really liked Aquinas, because of the theology and philosophy.
Sure.
Erasmus, it's the kind of thing you admire, like you might admire a great athlete, right? But if you watch a great athlete going through their paces all the time, doing things that you feel like I could never do that.
Yeah.
It's impressive for a while.
Yeah.
But then it's a little bit exhausting.
Kind of reminds me of and so I play guitar.
Right.
And so if you go to see a phenomenal guitarist,
right,
you're in awe, but it also kind of makes you feel like
deficient,
right?
Yeah.
It also feels like that's fabulous. I'm never going to be able to touch that.
Right.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Now, was there one day left?
Yeah, Friday.
Okay, yeah.
We read a little portion of John Calvin's Institutes of the Christian Religion.
Okay.
The 1559 edition. So I was hoping we would get to chapters 7, 8, and 9 of book 3.
Yeah.
We only finished chapter 6. So this is because I knew it was going to be an ecumenical event based on the folks who had signed up. I tried to pick something from Calvin that I was interested in, and he was the one advertised, right? So everybody knew in advance,
right,
this is what you're getting into, I tried to pick something that was a little less polemical, a little more ecumenical, and so this portion of the Institutes is his view of the Christian life.
Okay.
And his Latin is also just really exalted. I mean, it's fantastic stuff.
Can you go toe to toe with Erasmus?
Yes. His early and audience, we will get to Vergil. Hang in there. Calvin's early ambition was to be the French Erasmus. That was his goal. Didn't ever work out, but a good stylist. So just some fascinating Latin. And we had these delicious meals that our hospitality staff, my wife and daughter, they cooked, and we had some volunteers come in and help out too, some folks from church, and it Just a really good time.
Fantastic.
Really good time.
That's great. And so you're going to do this again next year.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. We had coffee, adult beverages. We had delicious desserts, and just lots of real conviviality. Literary friendships around the fireplace, things like that. The fire pit.
Yeah, sounds fantastic.
Yeah, we try to get you out there, Winkle.
Yeah,
Try to get you. You were busy though.
I was very busy this past week.
I heard you were performing this past week.
I did. I have a buddy and I had an acoustic duo gig at a place out in Holland, Michigan, and it was a ton of fun. I had not performed in a long time, and so it was great to do that again.
Were they holding lighters and throwing roses at the stage?
Nothing of the sort.
Okay.
Right. It's often, as these gigs go, the first kind of half of it is kind of pulling teeth.
Okay.
And then by the end, you got the people kind of get involved, and right when it's time to be done, you run out of songs.
There you go.
Everybody's having a great time.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that takes the place of the shout out, doesn't it?
It does, right?
Because we got no shout outs to out.
Yeah. So again, to the audience, an invitation to write in. If you want to shout out, or even if you don't want to shout out, let us know.
Right.
What you like. Tell us something about yourself. We'd love to kind of plug you on the air. Right. So in place of a shout out, should we talk about our latest sponsor?
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Pop City Popcorn.
Okay.
And located down in Kalamazoo, of all the Mizzous in Michigan, I would say that's probably the best.
It's my favorite Mizzou.
Yes.
Yep.
And can you tell us, Jeff, a little bit about what you enjoy about their product?
I like their savory stuff.
Right.
I love the Parmesan.
Mm-hmm.
I like even I'm not a huge kind of sweet tooth guy, but their two-way drizzle.
Yes.
It's fantastic. It was the best kind of caramel and
chocolate
popcorn I've ever had in my life.
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. Yeah. What about you?
The bacon cheddar. It's definitely a home run, right? Hit it right out of the rink. That was just a fantastic.
Hit the puck out of the rink.
I'm trying to mix metaphors here, Winkle.
Okay.
You caught that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Just a line drive right into the end zone. The bacon cheddar, absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
The movie theater butter, also very good.
Oh, I like that one too.
Right.
So anything that you find on the shelf in the store, this just blows it away.
That's right.
The ingredients they're using natural, real ingredients, and it's so flavorful. My boys love it. My wife loves it. It's great stuff. So, Dave, if our listeners are interested in this, what should they do?
Well, instead of picking up a bag of that, what's it called? That Fatty Pop, I think.
Fatty Pop.
Fatty Pop.
Exactly.
Or, the Jacker Crack.
The Jacker Crack.
Is the one you mentioned. They should go to popcitypopcorn.com, popcitypopcorn.com, and they should browse the catalog, and then they should enter this coupon code, ANPOP20. Is that right, Jeff?
ANPOP20, yes.
Yes, POP20, and what do they get?
They'll get 20% off their first order.
Right. Now, you might be wondering, listener, come on, guys. We wait for that wonderful bumper music and then to have the ads in the middle of the program. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Yes.
Why are we mixing it up like this?
Right. Why are we mixing it up, Jeff?
Well, we want to at the top of the show, give a plug to this great sponsor.
Yeah.
We want to give a heads up to the audience. I really think they'll like this stuff.
They will really like it. So, we're just asking you, check it out.
Check it out, please.
All right. And I think, Jeff, you've got the opening quote again this week, don't you?
Yes. This comes from the same article that we had our opening quote from the previous episode. This is from David Quint's Painful Memories, Aeneid 3 and the Problem of the Past, in which I really like his argument that what Aeneas and his crew need to really deal with is leaving Troy behind, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. They need to let go and create something completely new.
Okay.
And so throughout book 3, they find themselves kind of encountering elements of their past and this draw back to Troy, but everything that fate has in store for them kind of pushes them to the next piece.
Okay, so this is David Quint. This is came out in the Classical Journal in 1982.
Yeah, so 40 years ago.
40 years.
Yeah.
Which in classics terms is like a moment ago.
Yeah,
right?
yesterday. Right.
Current scholarship.
Right.
So let's have the quote, please.
Yeah, well, one more setup to this.
Okay, sorry.
So I don't know if you had this experience in grad school where you would be reading something and you get a great idea for an article.
Oh.
And you say, this is fantastic. I'm sure nobody's thought of it before.
Right.
And then you find out, oh yeah, like 12 people have written
exactly.
on this, right?
Yeah.
So when I was reading book 3, the scene, which we'll get to, where Aeneas encounters, they find Andromache is still alive and she's remarried and she's living in Greece. I thought, as I was reading the episode, this reminds me of the underworld scene in Odyssey 11, and I think Vergil wants to see this as kind of a nod towards that. And of course, I thought this was a great idea. They'd make a great article.
You're thinking, I could write my dissertation on this.
I could write another dissertation. This would be great.
Right.
This is so
groundbreaking.
And then I
did you call the Harvard Classics department and say, you might want to just, put me on hold right now because I got this article coming out and you're going to want to recruit me?
Well, they've blocked my number.
Okay.
Right. So, but then I read this Quint article and sure enough, this Dave already had it. So
so I can answer your question. Yes, that happened to me all the time.
It's frustrating.
It is frustrating, but there's how's the saying go? Nil sub sola, nil novi sub sola. Nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun. Yeah.
Right.
I remember professors at Northwestern. I would float these ideas.
Right.
And they would often say, "That sounds great, but I can almost guarantee you somebody's done it already."
Yeah.
Right.
Often they would say probably some German did it.
German. Yeah. Exactly.
So this is probably a German dissertation from 1869.
Exactly.
Go check on it.
Right.
400 pages.
Right. All right. Let's get to the quote. Where Quint talks about this very thing that I thought I had nailed down. So he writes, Andromache begins to play the role of a shade in the Odyssey when she asks whether Ascanius is living or whether he is living up to the valorous examples of Aeneas and Hector. Her questions and her concern for the surviving child who carries on the family line recall the moments in Odyssey 11 when Agamemnon asks Odysseus whether Orestes is still alive and Achilles asks if Neoptolemus, or Epirus as he's often called in the Aeneid, has grown up to be a warrior in the family mold. The pathetic situations are similar. The dead Homeric heroes and the past-obsessed Andromache inquire after the offspring who embody their hopes in a future they cannot share. This similarity might appear to be merely coincidental, were it not for the fact that Andromache has only 7 lines earlier described the fates of Orestes and Neoptolemus. And here we get the Latin. Ast il ereptae magno flammatus amore, conjuges et scelerum furiis acatatus Orestes, excipit incertum patri asque obtroncit ad aras.
Very nice.
And he goes on, both of these sons have come to bad ends. Orestes, himself pursued by the furies of matricide, has killed Neoptolemus. So we find out that Orestes has killed Pyrrhus, who we talked about in book 2, has this horrific scene where he kills Priam at the altar.
Right. So draw this out for me a little bit here, because this exalted prose that Quint has, he's losing me a little bit here.
Okay.
Can you connect the dots?
All right. So I think that what I took away from it is that not only do the details of that scene seem to be a kind of a mimicking of Odyssey 11. So
right.
As we'll see when we first see Andromache, she's making a libation to the dead. She's trying to call up the ghost of Hector. So there's that Homeric nod, but I think that along with Quint's overarching thesis is Andromache's stuck. She cannot leave Troy behind. She's remarried. She's in the dude's place, but she's still obsessed with her past. She's still obsessed with Hector. And so she is a cautionary tale for Aeneas. You can't get trapped like this. Right. And so she's stuck in Homer. She's stuck in this loop. She's stuck in Troy. And Aeneas, I think, recognizes implicitly. He's starting to get it more and more that he can't just stop at these places. He can't try to recreate Troy because that gets you nowhere.
Let it go, man.
Let it go, man.
That's what Andromache's telling him.
Exactly.
Now, she doesn't tell him explicitly.
No, she does not tell him explicitly, but and I think that's part of Vergil's genius.
Right.
Is that he leaves a lot of this stuff kind of just under the surface.
Suggestive that you're supposed to pick up on your own.
Right. So I think as we saw in the last episode, there's lots of prophecies. Various seers are prophesying that there's a harpy that prophesies, and all of these prophecies kind of build on each other. And in the scene with Andromache, with Helenas, the seer, her new husband,
right?
His prophecy kind of puts all the last pieces into place. So I think through all of these prophecies building on each other, they're pushing Aeneas to a realization that he has to let go of the past, and the new thing he's going to build is not going to be just a kind of a simulacrum of Troy. It's going to be something completely new.
Right. Now, in that well said, in that terrible, terrible movie that we reviewed, this was episode 7 or 8.
Oh, Troy?
Troy the movie.
Yes.
More bods than gods.
That's right.
Nobody really likes that episode.
The numbers suggest that nobody likes that episode.
Should we pause and shed a tear? In that movie, nevertheless, the character of Andromache is played by Saffron Burrows.
Saffron? I don't know that actress.
She's a wonderful actress.
Okay.
Yep. And I was very pleased with that casting because Andromache is one of the most sympathetic characters in the Iliad.
Oh, without a doubt, right.
Book 6 at the gates, the Scaean gates, and she played that role really well.
Yeah.
And now she's living her next life, right? As you're saying here in Aeneid 3,
right?
And telling Aeneas, without saying it explicitly, the past is dead. You have to move on,
right? And it's this really weird mix of joy and horror, right? That to kind of discover Andromache alive, and to discover kind of this another clan of Trojans that escaped and has kind of built something new,
right?
At the beginning is something kind of wondrous and this kind of joyous reunion,
right?
But quickly it descends into something quite, I wouldn't say not sinister, but something really quite.
It's disturbing.
Yeah.
Dysfunctional, maybe we should say.
Yeah.
So as we get into it then,
yeah,
here a third of the way through the episode,
right?
What are we going to give the people? What, some island hopping, coast hopping?
Lots of more coast hopping. I mean, they're making their way towards Italy,
right?
But eventually, we'll see. They make it to Italy, but then they get blown off course.
Correct.
Of course, the audience will remember that Aeneas is telling this whole story as a flashback.
Yes.
He's in Carthage, and so we have to get the crew to Carthage,
right?
And that's what happens by the end of this book.
Yeah. So he began at the beginning of book 2. He's in the big hall, and Dido says, "Tell us the whole story of everything that's happened. I want to hear it all."
Yeah.
So book 2, Fall of Troy, and here we are deep in book 3.
Deep in book 3.
And I understand that you're growing to love book 3 a little bit.
I am. I think I mentioned in the last episode, I thought my first reaction, this is kind of filler. I mean, how many sacrifices, how many libations, how many prayers do we need to? We get it already. You're pious,
right?
But man, by the end, I reread the chapter, book 3 earlier today, and I really came around on it. This is brilliant stuff, and you kind of see how all the pieces Vergil kind of puts together and builds on these pieces.
Okay,
it's amazing.
So we've got Thrace and Polydorus. We covered that last time.
Yep.
Delos and Crete.
Yep.
The island of the Strophides.
With the harpies.
Yeah, the terrible harpies. Mm-hmm. Now Helenus and Andromache. That's what we got now.
Yep.
And now we're coming up on Sicily.
Yep.
The Cyclopes and Acestes.
Right. We started to get some of this. I even came around to this kind of this fan service. Right.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that term.
So
fan service.
So for example, did you happen to see the
the answer is going to be no, no matter what you say.
So Dave, you did not see the latest Ghostbusters film.
No.
Right, okay, all right. It was actually not bad with Paul Rudd. I like Paul Rudd.
Oh, he's Ant-Man.
Ant-Man.
He?
Yeah.
Yes. He's
very
funny guy.
Very funny guy. So they're bringing back the Ghostbusters franchise.
Right.
And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, but at the end. Who shows up but Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson, who played 3 of the Ghostbusters.
They couldn't get the 4th one?
He's dead.
That would be tough.
Yes. All right.
But it is called Ghostbusters, so you...
So they could have digitally inserted
Never mind.
Oh, that would have been really creepy. But they show up at the end, and it's one of those moments where the audience is like, you're almost going to prompt it to cheer. Like, there are the guys. And a lot of reviewers found it, cheesy.
But what do reviewers know? The movie's not made for them.
No, exactly right. And so they kind of derided it as fan service. It's like this. Of course, you're going to expect them to be there. So they get their cameo at the end. And so I thought this too, where we have Aeneas is now treading on Homeric territory,
right? And
he's running into some of the same monsters. We get a glimpse of the Cyclops and stuff. And what my first reaction was, like a reviewer, cheesy fan service. But no, I love how Vergil just kind of keeps all of the men on the edges of things.
That's right.
He doesn't take them into the Cyclops cave. If he had done that, I would have said, no, back to the drawing board.
It's suggestive only.
It's very suggestive.
That's what Ovid does, though. He does what you wouldn't like. He says, okay, Vergil did it tastefully. I'm just going to blow out all the stops.
Right, exactly, right. Well, I mean, Ovid can get away with it because he's so entertaining.
Right.
But I thought Vergil kind of did this very artfully where he just kind of takes us around the edge. There's a suggestion of it, right?
Yeah. The difference also, if I may say, is that there's almost 700 years or more between Homer and Vergil.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So, to our example of Ghostbusters, it's partly just too early.
Yeah, I guess so. Right.
600 years from now, Dan Aykroyd shows up. That's going to be impressive.
That is impressive. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think 600 years from now, I would still want to see Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So I think, Jeff, we've covered pretty adequately the Andromache and Helenus episode.
Yeah, there's a couple more things I want to say.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But just a little bit prior to that, we skipped over something really interesting.
We did.
Which is the sailing past the island of Ithaca.
Yeah. This is great. And so there's the crew is sailing. They've just left the Harpies, and so they're kind of sailing up the north west coast of Greece.
Right.
And Vergil takes a moment to tell us that they sail past Ithaca, and they recognize it as the homeland of Ulysses, of Odysseus.
Yeah.
And how do they respond? They shout curses. I think that's amazing. Yeah. And at least in my opinion, not a little funny.
Yes. Yeah. No doubt. So I got the chance to visit there. I didn't go to Ithaca or Zacynthus, but I was on the island of Kephallonia. This was
that's right nearby, isn't
2014.
It?
Yes,
yeah.
I saw Ithaca and I saw the sunrise over Ithaca, rosy-fingered dawn one morning.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So that was really nice.
I don't imagine you hurled curses in its general direction, though, did you?
I was tempted. I was tempted. You know how I curse in the mornings.
Right, exactly. Right.
But we want to give the people a little bit of the Latin there.
Yeah. Take us there.
So this is line 272 is where it starts. E fugimus scapulus Ithacae la erthia regna et ter altri chemsi vexe cramor ulixi. That's the part that you want.
Ulixi.
Yeah. The execramor. We curse him.
Yeah, that's great. So in the timeline of the story, we imagine that at the same moment Odysseus and his men are still lost. Right. They have not yet returned to Ithaca. But the Trojans know him well enough and know this land, this area well enough that they know, okay, that's Ulysses' homeland, and we know what he did to us.
Right.
And so they're shouting curses. They're maybe mooning the island, perhaps.
He's not there though.
He's not there, but
I don't think so. He's still wandering. He's still got a lot of wandering to do. Maybe another 6-7 years to follow the timeline.
Yeah, exactly. So they make their way up the coast of Epirus, right? Which if I remember talking to you, I remember you talking about that. You were saying that if you were to spend like a long time in Greece, living there, that this is the area that you would choose.
Yeah. Well, we were there, remember, in 2011 with Christiana when we went up to the Necromantion and Dodona, right?
Yeah.
And I just thought that Epirus was just the most beautiful part of Greece.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal because you have, I'm told this is kind of rare, you have a place where there's mountains and the sea, and the mountains come down almost to the sea, right?
Yeah.
Usually there's a slope, there's a descending plane. But Epirus was just breathtaking.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you're far away from Athens. You're far away from kind of the urban, the hotspots, such as they are in Greece.
Yes.
And so it would be a much more placid experience.
Yeah, idyllic.
Yeah. So this is where we are.
Okay.
And so this is where they stumble upon Andromache and find out that she survived and she's remarried. And so we learn that Pyrrhus has been killed. So Orestes has killed Pyrrhus at the altar of his own father Achilles. And I thought
there's some poetic justice.
Justice, right? Because Pyrrhus killed Priam at the altar of Minerva,
right?
As we learned in book two. And so it's a fitting death. It's almost kind of a kind of Roman karma that Pyrrhus gets what's coming to him. And so what I found another thing very striking about this scene is that. I almost expected that Aeneas would say, "Oh, look at this! They've already started to build a new Troy.
Right?
Why? I'll come in and kind of take over and
right.
And this
it's like a subdevelopment, right?
Yes, exactly right. But not once does Vergil give us an Aeneas who has that thought, and not once do we get Helenus or Andromache who invites them. It's almost like they both know that Aeneas is just visiting here. And Aeneas recognizes that there's something off about this. He even describes the Troy as being false or fake. I think Lombardo translates it as pretend. Right. So he says he comes across Andromache performing a ritual alongside a pretend Simois. She's even
the Simois is the river in Troy. Just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Right. A tributary of the Scamander. Right. And so she's even created a false river to remind her of home. And so
like a Potemkin village, is it? Yes,
right. And so I'm gonna assume that you have not seen Stranger Things.
No.
So
I have been to Epcot though.
What are you talking about?
Have you never been to Epcot?
What does that
by Disney World?
What does that have to do with Stranger Things?
Nothing, but it has to do with this.
Okay, explain.
Well, at
and then I'll explain Stranger Things.
Okay, at Epcot, there's a miniature of all the different parts of the world that are interesting architecturally and geographically.
Yeah.
That's what Andromache's doing. She's trying to recreate in a very false way.
It's a small world after all.
Yes, you can't go back to Troy.
Right.
It's done.
Right.
Forget the past. This is the lesson Aeneas is learning.
So the Stranger Things metaphor that I thought of here is a little darker.
Okay.
But in that show, there's this place that they refer to as the Upside Down.
Ooh.
And the Upside Down is kind of a dark mirror image of everything that you see in the upside world.
Okay.
And so I saw that in Andromache's kind of false Troy as being kind of the upside down.
I'll have to take your word for it.
In that it's very much a dark underworld.
Yeah.
Which kind of fits the Quint theory.
Whenever I hear it's an upside down, all I can think is cake, right?
I like to be reminded of cake.
The pineapple, right?
Right.
Yeah. So what would the Latin for Stranger Things be? Ineptiora? Ineptiora. There's optus, what's suitable or fitting.
Yes.
Ineptus means it doesn't fit, it doesn't suit.
So ineptiora, the stranger thing.
Yeah, things that are not. They're even less suitable than other things.
Yes, yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So, just a couple things I wanted to add to that episode, which we covered, at the top of the show. That I thought one thing that Quint, I won't say that he missed, but the one thing I could add to his thesis is that, talking about our time at the Necromantion, one of the things that we learned there was that this is one of the places that the Greeks themselves associated with an entrance to the underworld.
Absolutely.
And not only that, but with that episode in Odyssey 11.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's very clear that in Vergil's geographic descriptions, we're at a point in Roman history where the Romans are starting to associate physical, real geographical places with things that happened in Homer's Odyssey in a way that the Greeks never did.
Yes.
And so I wonder that Vergil setting this scene in Epirus, he's playing on the fact that his audience would have known, that's associated with the underworld. That's associated with Odyssey Book 11.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's quite right. And of course, we both know that the world of, this is in our notes here, so I can thank you for it, but the world of Homer is geographically bizarre and confusing.
It is.
Nobody knows exactly where he is at any given minute.
Right.
Other than the named places, which are actually few.
Yeah.
But the world of Vergil, you can follow a very simple linear path for Aeneas's wanderings.
Right. We'll see this play out when we get to book 6 in a year and a half,
right?
Perhaps, where if you compare Vergil's underworld to Homer's underworld, Homer's underworld is foggy and misty and very unclear, and Vergil's underworld is like a department store.
It's GPS.
It is.
You got everything there.
And I think that same rule applies to kind of the whole of the epic.
Right.
I mean, there's even in book 3, when Helenus gives his prophecy, he's like laying out directions. You got to take a left here.
Right. It's very specific.
Very specific and very, very Roman. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So I wanted to read a bit of Lombardo's translation from this episode as he kind of walks into the place that Andromache and Helenus have set up.
That'd be great, Jeff. Remind me, who publishes the Lombardo translation of the Aeneid?
That would be Hackett.
Oh, Hackett!
Yes.
Is it really?
It is.
With offices in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay,
we're not going to launch right into the ad right now.
Well, no. Sorry,
but that is the one. It's and it is a fantastic translation. And so Aeneas is speaking here. He says, "As I advanced, I recognized a little Troy, a Pergamum modeled on the great one, a dry creek named after the Xanthus, and I embraced another Scaean gate. My fellow Teucrians enjoyed the friendly city as much as I did. The king welcomed them in a broad colonnade, and they poured libations in the center of a great hall, holding their wine bowls as the feast was served on platters of gold."
Oh, very nice.
It sounds very, very nice, but this idea, he found a dry creek named after the Xanthus.
Yes.
It's a little Troy.
I see.
It's a fake river.
Right.
And so Aeneas even recognized, I think maybe a few weeks earlier, Aeneas would have said, "This has got to be it.
Right.
This has got to be what the prophecies have said, and we'll set up shop here." But now he knows this is off.
You know what? It strikes me there's maybe kind of an aesthetic principle here. Let's just try this out on the audience.
Okay.
I think people only like miniatures and copies when they're enough different that it's obvious that that's what's intended. It has to be self-consciously so.
Okay.
Right? So things that are tiny to scale, those are impressive.
Yes.
I mean, that are to scale, but the scale's large, like, 40 to 1. But something that's just a little bit different, it looks like it's trying too hard to be like the original. And So even though it's closer, it's more displeasing.
Yes.
Because it's not the real thing.
Yes, exactly right.
I'm trying to think of an example.
Well, it reminds me of two things.
Okay.
Actually, so one is personal. So
okay, here we go.
Well, not that personal.
Now,
but
we should tell the audience we're both sitting in comfortable chairs in our new location.
we are. Yeah.
So this is going to be like an Oprah moment. Jeff's getting personal.
This episode has felt a little bit more Oprah. It's
Yeah.
been a little bit more loose.
Probably the location.
Right. But when I was back when I was 14, and I was starting to play piano and getting really into it, I wanted a synthesizer, right? The keyboards, in 1980.
I wanted one of those too.
Right. And so there was one that I really wanted. It was the Yamaha DX7, which was like the standard, but it was way beyond the resources of my parents.
Did it have the dog bark?
No.
Like you push the key and it goes roof, roof.
No, that's the Casio you play. That was on sale at Kmart.
You didn't want one of those?
No, I wanted the DX7, which I saw on MTV.
Okay.
Right. And so I wanted that, but I knew that my parents were never going to be able to get this. But they got me a keyboard, and it was like a miniature version of the DX7, with mini keys and all.
Right.
Right. And it's exactly as you stated that principle. It was not different enough. It was close enough to be like
there
to get it, but different enough to say, oh, this is just a fake.
Whereas if they had given you an actual toy piano, the kind with 7 or 8 keys and it's different colors.
Yeah,
I can remember playing those things.
Sure.
When I had no other toy,
Yeah.
like at the home of a great aunt or something. I don't know. And that's the only toy available.
Yeah.
I could have a lot of fun with that.
Absolutely.
And do something that I was actually pretty pleased with.
Sure.
But only because everyone knew it was not close to the real thing.
Exactly right. And the other thing that this reminded me of is
I just got to ask before you go on.
Yeah, please.
Would it do the hand clapping? Because that was big too. The clap.
it did not have any of
as
those
a
kinds of things.
percussive sort of filler.
It was a real synthesizer where you could treat it like a computer and combine sounds to create your own thing.
Well, I'm sorry.
And that was kind of fun. But as far as like performing, tiny keys, my big fat Dutch fingers. That's like,
What about the little wah thing? The tremolo.
it did have the modulation wheel.
Okay.
Wah, wah. Exactly.
All right. On to your second example.
Yeah. Just a couple weeks ago, I was in Chicago with my wife and my son, and we went to the Art Institute where they have a whole level which is dedicated to miniatures. And that's the case where it's done right.
Correct.
They have these rooms and the detail that's done to the rooms, but on a scale of 500 to 1.
Right.
And that's really impressive.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but this is a fake Troy. This is the Yamaha DX100 of the epic world.
Well, maybe someone in our audience has a name for that. Maybe they know what we're talking about.
There's got to be a term for
an
that.
aesthetic or a philosophical principle.
Right. I think it's something like are you familiar with Freud's theory of the uncanny valley?
Yes.
Where something is it's why puppets are creepy.
Right.
Because they're close to human, but they're just off enough.
Right.
Or clowns.
It's why people don't like our podcast. It's almost entertaining. It's almost educational,
but not quite.
Not quite.
Right. That's right. So there's lots of overlap with liminality, but we're not going there.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. No. All right.
Speaking of liminality,
yes,
it's time for the ads.
It is. This episode of Ad Nauseam brought to you by Ratio Coffee. Dave, I got the Ratio 8. Did we talk about this already?
We have, Jeff, but let's talk about it again.
Yes. I've fallen in love with this machine, and my wife has fallen in love with this machine. So I had the 6 for a while, which is a great machine.
Solid.
Very solid machine. The elegance of the 8. Every time I walk into the kitchen, that hand-blown carafe.
Yes, borosilicate glass.
Borosilicate. It's a beautiful thing.
You have no need to go to the museum that you just mentioned.
No, I don't.
That's because you've got a work of art right there on your countertop.
Exactly right. And I do not want a miniature Ratio 8. If anything, I want a bigger one.
A Ratio 8th. No.
Yeah.
So I was talking about the colloquium earlier.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And we were out there in this lovely idyllic setting. And these folks, I think there's some relationship between coffee drinking and Latin. These folks drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
In fact, Mrs. Noe said the first day, we're going to need more coffee.
Yes.
And we bought a container of decaf. No decaf. Not one cup of decaf was, I can never get this, was drank? Was drunk?
Drunk, yeah.
Was drinked.
Drinked.
Not one cup of decaf was drinked the whole week.
Really?
But here's the downside. Here's the rub.
Yeah.
I didn't take the Ratio 8 out there for the folks.
I was just going to ask you.
I know.
Yeah.
I flaked on it. So
Yeah.
so we were using some of the brands that we won't name.
Okay.
And the coffee was good because we bought, good priced coffee. But but I went through a week of no ratio 8.
Oh, you missed it.
It was withdrawal.
Yeah. So when you came back to it, it was like a return to Ithaca.
Saturday morning, I thought, I am really looking forward to this great coffee that I'm going to get from the ratio 8. So reliable.
Great machines. And with our offer here, you listeners can get either the ratio 6, you can get the ratio 8 and get this great discount. So if you go to ratiocoffee.com, you pick the machine you want.
That's correct.
And what's our code?
Our code is ANCO, ad nauseam coffee, ANCO 89.
89.
Now you got to be quick because this particular coupon code is going to expire on June 30.
It's right around the corner.
It's right around the corner. This episode is going to drop soon, but you're going to have just a couple days. Now don't worry, we'll have another coupon code for July, but why wait?
Why wait? And that will get you 15% off.
That's right.
On the machine you order.
Yeah, just one more thing I'd like to say about it, Jeff.
Yep.
You know, as you kind of get older, maybe this has happened to you. I'm a pretty thrifty person.
Yeah.
You know, Dollar General, 99-cent store. And often in my life, I've bought a cheap product and immediately regretted it.
Oh, I do that all
so
the time.
many times.
Yeah.
As I get a little older, hopefully get a little bit wiser, and some things that you use every day and that bring a lot of joy to your, routine existence.
Yes.
It's worth investing a little bit more in.
It's very true.
So, the ratio 8 is not a cheap machine.
No.
But it's an heirloom.
It is. It's consistent, it's reliable, and it's beautiful.
Exactly. Check it out. This episode of Ad Nauseam is also brought to you, dear listener, by the great folks at Hackett Publishing.
Hackett Publishing, they've been with us from the very beginning.
That's right.
They've been in business for 50 years.
This is the anniversary.
Exactly 50 years. They got their offices in Indianapolis and in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And they are the publishers of this wonderful translation of the Aeneid by Stanley Lombardo that we've been reading for the last several episodes.
They also have a new Len Krizak verse edition of the Aeneid.
Aeneid, yeah.
But we've got Stanley's Iliad. We've got his Odyssey. They have a huge selection of fantastic classical authors.
Yeah.
But is it only classical authors?
No. I mean, it's all corners of history and literature from around the world. Asian studies,
South American
studies, Islam. They've got it all.
Right.
So yeah, listener, take a moment to check out hackettpublishing.com and just go through their immense catalog. You're going to find something that you're interested in.
Right. Just today, I got an online comment on some of our social media.
Yeah.
From a lovely friend of ours. I won't give her name. I'll just say her first initial. It's Donna. And she said, I am so glad I'm listening to Ad Nauseam because I need to order a bunch of books for the fall semester. I plugged in that coupon code.
Fantastic. Yes, exactly. And it is a great deal. So
absolutely.
You go to hackettpublishing.com. You find the books that you want. You type in, what's the code for this one?
It's AN2022. The current year.
Yeah, AN2022. And this fantastic deal. You'll get 20% off everything you order, and you get
free shipping.
You
got to put the books into your little satchel, though.
Oh, yes. They can't leave them outside the satchel. They got to be in the satchel.
Put them in your man purse.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. AN2022.
That's correct.
20% off and free shipping.
Speaking of man purse, Jeff, since we're being a little digressive this evening.
Are you getting personal now?
Do you want to talk about some of our adventures in Italy trying to find things to hold our belongings?
You bought a man purse in Italy.
I bought several.
Yeah.
And they kept breaking.
Talking about, we bought them, you cheaped out. Right?
I cheaped out, of course. It was no ratio 8. I bought one, it broke. I stitched it. I threw it away. I bought another one.
I remember that.
All I can say what did we call this man purse? We gave it kind of a portmanteau.
Didn't we call it trunky?
No, we called it a murse.
A murse? Oh, sorry.
You don't remember combining, man purse? It's a murse.
It's a murse, right.
Right.
I do remember the murse itself. It was a staple on many of our long treks throughout Rome.
It was terrible. You might even say it was a murse case scenario.
Oh, man, that's a long setup for that.
But worth it.
But very worth it.
Worth it.
It's worth it.
Worth the 10-hour flight.
So Hackett Publishing, check it out.
All right, Jeff, so as we get back into it now, Aeneas asks Helenus, a fellow Trojan, asks him for a prophecy. What's coming next?
Well, here, do we need? My first response was, do we need another prophecy?
See, you're just not religious enough.
How many prophecies do we need? Libations,
omens,
right?
Prophecies. We need it all.
I guess so. I mean, I guess part of the point that Vergil's trying to make, these guys are religiously correct to a T.
They're devout.
They're devout, right? In a way that the Greeks were not.
No.
And so I guess it shouldn't surprise me that Aeneas wants yet another prophecy. And this is, of all the prophecies in Book 3, this is by far the longest and the most detailed. And so Helenus is a seer, right? This is what he does.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's more than happy to give this prophecy, and it's very, very detailed. He basically tells them everywhere they should sail, where they shouldn't sail, what to avoid, what to expect. He tells them that, by the time you get to the land that you're going to found this new city, there are certain signs you need to look for. So he mentions this. He says, build your city where you encounter a giant white sow with a litter of 30.
There was one crossing the road on the way over here. Doesn't this happen all the time?
Well, a giant white sow wandering across the road.
With a litter of 30?
30, right.
And there's a sign there, right, by the road that says clearly no littering.
Oh, man, you're on fire tonight. Yes. So look for this white sow near an oak tree by a hidden stream, and that's where you need to set up shop.
That's very specific.
Very specific. Now, I wanted to ask you, so the one thing that I thought, not as a kind of a direct reference, but it reminded me of Cadmus, where he goes to the oracle at Delphi and tells him, when you leave here, you're going to find a cow,
a white cow
with strange markings,
right? And
where it lays down to rest, that's where you're going to find your new city. That's where Thebes is.
That's where you're going to sacrifice the animal.
Yes,
and found your city,
right? And so I thought, okay, that kind of reminded me of that. But the symbolism of the pig, does that ring any kind of bell with you? I'm not fishing for any kind of answer. I just thought, why the sow? Why the large litter?
Yeah, you're not fishing for an answer on the sow.
No.
I can say that in the iconography of Rome, I'm thinking here of the Areopagus.
Yeah.
There are porcine individuals, on the iconography.
Yeah.
And I think that had I, researched this, I would have found that in fact, pigs are an important part of Roman religion, extending back into history in a way that they weren't to the Greeks.
I see, yeah.
But that's all I really want to say about it, because I don't want to speak from ignorance.
No, I like that. I mean, I think that the fact that it would kind of call up kind of religious sacrificial imagery, I mean, it fits right in with everything in this book.
And you do remember
it's Roman.
You do remember it's on the Areopagus, right?
Yeah.
Some of the tableau they show, that's one of the animals that's prominent there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, okay, yeah, I like that. And so he tells him, also remember the prophecy that the Harpies gives them is your wanderings aren't going to be over until you eat your table.
Eat your tables, the
right.
flatitza.
The flatitza, right, the bread bowl.
Right.
And so, Aeneas is wondering about that. And I love how Helenus just kind of waves it away. He says, yeah, don't worry about the tables. The fate has its way. It'll work itself out.
I kind of wonder about the nature of the elements of the sign. You said it's a white sow with a litter of 30 near an oak tree.
Mm-hmm. And a hidden stream. So if one of those elements is off or changed a little bit, why does it have to be so specific? Why so much specified complexity? Let's say it's a white sow with 29 piglets and a maple tree. Right. Is it
no deal?
No, I think
partially revealed stream?
No, I think no deal. I think that,
but none of these things are common in and of themselves, and the combination is even more rare. So, what kind of information are the gods trying to convey?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do see what you're saying.
One landmark is enough. It's like when someone's giving you directions, and they say, turn at the ice cream shop. It's the one that has. Okay, I got it. It's an ice cream shop.
Yeah.
Right? Good enough.
I'm out of here. Right. No, I know there's something kind of very odd about kind of the specificity of it, but it reminds me of something that happens right after this. So, so Helenus goes through his prophecy and tells them what you're going to see and what you should avoid and all this stuff. But he ends his prophecy by saying, worship Juno and worship her first. All right. That's pretty specific too.
Yes. And
what happens is they sail away. Helenus loads them up with gifts. Xenia is taken care of. And they see the headlands of Italy, and they get really excited, and they start yelling, Italy, Italy, Italy. And the first thing they see is kind of this the natural harbor with a temple of Minerva. And so, of course, being religiously correct, they worship her. They offer libations, they pray.
Right.
And then the next thing they see is a temple of Juno. And it's Virgil writes something, and remembering what Helena said, they worship her as well. And so they follow the directions, but they did not worship her first.
That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Right.
And so I think these specific elements, everything has to be followed to a T, and if it's not, that throws everything off.
So what do you think on the first sighting of Italy? What did you think they would see? Maybe selfie sticks. Those guys selling selfie sticks down by the Colosseum.
Right, exactly. Or they heard the buzz of Vespas in the distance, right?
Ripping through the streets of Florence to run you down.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, and that's what I think of when I think of
That's right.
my first sights and sounds of Italy.
The first sights and sounds of Italy.
Right.
I bought a selfie stick.
Did you really?
Yes.
Did you use it?
Well, I used it in order to guide the students. It was actually Mrs. Noe's idea. She said, "Why don't you buy a selfie stick? It's only €1." And then it telescopes way up, right?
Yeah.
I tied something to the top of it that was visible, and then the 32 students I was leading could actually see me because, I'm not a person of great stature.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, that reminds me of that's a tour guide staple, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you put the little flag on the top.
That's
and
right.
They can all see where you are.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I would expect, Aeneas and his men would see when they first sight Italy.
Yeah. But what's also very striking is they don't stop there. I mean, they take the prophecy seriously, where Helenus tells them, this is, you're going to see it, but you're not going to be it right away.
Now, is this part of Juno's anger that they failed to pray to her first?
I think that's kind of implicit. I think that's folded in here, right? And so, they follow the instructions, but they miss a part of it as well. So it'd be like they found a sow with a litter of 30. By a bush,
yes,
right, and near a pond,
right,
and Aeneas
oak tree,
and Aeneas saying, close enough,
right.
Well, no, if he does that, he's in for big trouble. So these things have to be followed to the letter.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and then we get to then we start to see these Homeric scenes, right?
The Cyclops and so forth.
I wondered. I thought about this too, and I wanted to get your opinion on this.
Okay.
So, in the Roman conception, the Cyclops Island is Sicily, or it's a part of Sicily. It's
right.
The crags on the coast of Sicily. Is why would the Romans? Why would I don't think it's Vergil here. This is probably Vergil's doing something that the Romans were familiar with. Why place the kind of the savage Cyclopes on Sicily? This part that's in Vergil's time part of the Roman growing empire.
Right.
Is it a kind of a slight towards kind of that part of Italy that was so colonized by the Greeks? Is it kind of a backhanded insult, or?
I don't know if you could call it an insult, but of course, all of southern Greece is called. I'm sorry, all of southern Italy is called, including Sicily, Magna Graecia. Right. There are more Greeks, as I love to tell my students, because I think it's such a fascinating fact. There are more Greeks living in Italy and Sicily south of Rome than there were in Greece itself. Right. In the 5th century and the 4th century, because it's just so much more hospitable. Mm-hmm. So I think that explains a lot of it. It's a uniquely Greek territory.
So it makes sense that they would kind of include this very uniquely Greek story.
I think. Okay. The other point is Mount Etna is on Sicily, and in some Homeric accounts and so forth, the Cyclopes are the ones who are making Zeus's thunderbolts. Right. Mount Etna is associated with Vulcan. And Enceladus, the big monster, is underneath there, and maybe it's the site of the shop where these thunderbolts get manufactured.
Okay, I like that. I mean, it made me think of Sicily today. It's still it's Italy, but it has a kind of a reputation of being a little bit loose cannon.
But you've been there, right?
I have not been to Sicily.
Oh, see, that's right. Neither have I.
But it's it's kind of the home of the origins of Cosa Nostra, the mafia.
That's right.
It's kind of has a reputation as a kind of a lawless place.
Is it Palermo, right on the northwest coast?
Yes.
Panormus in antiquity.
Yes. Yeah.
No, that's the name of it.
But you weren't making some.
No, I wasn't making a joke.
Panormus. Yeah.
Does everything have to be jokes with me, Jeff?
It seems like it often is. Yes, right. But I thought that that it still has maybe kind of that reputation today, kind of lawless, wild. You throw Vulcan into the mix, the rumbling of Etna.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, it maybe
plausible.
It has this ancient identity as kind of a wild place, and so this fits there. Right. So they stop off there.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, and they spend a harrowing night in the woods, where they're kind of hearing all kinds of horrible things. And then here is I think this another scene that I think is Vergil's brilliant, where he kind of makes this callback. Once again, the Trojans encounter kind of a wild, gaunt, near starving Greek,
right,
that comes rushing up,
runs down to the shore when their boat pulls in.
Yes, and he's desperate for help. And so this reminded me, of course, of Cyclops. That's exactly what happened, with the whole Trojan horse episode.
Right.
And
also along the coast, also, a Greek who is bedraggled and frightening in his appearance and so forth.
Yeah. And what kind of drove me crazy at first was, of course, the Trojans do exactly the same thing. Is their first instinct is to offer friendship.
And you're shouting at the television,
saying, no, don't.
It's a trap.
Don't do this.
It's a setup.
Hey, speaking of television, I wanted to mention the link that you got from a listener about.
Yes.
I had not known this Italian miniseries of the Aeneid.
Right.
Oh, I want to see this.
I do too, right? And so this was from a couple of my Greek students. I won't mention their last names. I'll just mention their initials, Tony and Mindy, and wonderful couple studying Greek with me. And they said we heard on the podcast that there's no screen version of the Aeneid. Well, au contraire, there is. So we got to see that.
We got to see that. I don't know how. I mean, I didn't look into it yet, but we got to find this.
Yes.
Even if it's like some DVD that needs a special player for it.
Right, maybe with a crank.
Yeah, exactly.
Put one of our kids on a bike and keep the bike moving to keep the screen lit.
I want to see it. I think I want to say it's from like 1970s.
65, I think.
Oh, is it earlier than that? Yeah.
Something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe some claymation involved.
All right.
So they spend a terrifying night in the woods, right? After they have glided to Cyclops shores.
Yeah.
And then they approached by this Greek whose name is
Achaemenides.
Right.
He's one of Odysseus's crew, and this is the kind of the tie-in. He claims that so the Cyclops episode in the Odyssey has already taken place.
That's right. And only about 2 weeks before, I think. I'm trying to remember the time frame. He hasn't been stranded very long.
Not very long, right? And we didn't mention, but earlier Vergil tells us that Aeneas also. In one line tells us he wanders for a year.
Right.
So a lot of time has passed, but he seems to be kind of on the heels of Odysseus.
Yes. He's just following in his footsteps.
Yeah.
At every spot he's a little behind.
Right. So this guy comes up and he says, "They left me for dead." Right. They left me behind. So he's kind of a wild man living in the woods off roots and berries.
A kind of Robinson Crusoe.
Right. So he kind of, to me, he had kind of a whiff of Philoctetes.
Mm-hmm.
So when he first sees the Trojans, he's like, it's Philoctetes. When he,
nice, a whiff of Philoctetes.
Oh, that's right. He's got the stinky.
He's got this.
I didn't even intend that.
Stinky foot.
Right. But the scene in
I do.
Sophocles' play where he's so overjoyed to see other humans,
any humans.
But he's also got another whiff of Elpenor.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's happening here, though, I think, is that Vergil is subtly telling us Romans are superior to Greeks.
You think that's what it is? Okay.
Odysseus abandoned this poor man
to
a monster. About whom was Odysseus concerned? Himself only.
Yeah.
Aeneas will leave nobody behind.
Yeah.
He's such a pious hero, right? He cannot leave anybody behind, even this Greek. So Romans are superior to Greeks, not only in military discipline and organization, but they're even superior in sympathy and compassion.
Yeah.
I think that's the patriotic theme here.
I think so. That's more important than maybe their naivete in perhaps possibly repeating the same mistake that they've decided. Right?
It didn't happen, and you're right.
Yeah.
Naivete and their innocence and gullibility.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps Vergil is suggesting this is a virtue.
Yeah.
It's better to have a little bit of that.
I'd agree with that. Here, a little bit more Lombardo here, and this refers to Achaemenides. When he saw by our clothes and weapons that we were Trojans, he stopped in fear for a moment and then rushed to the shore with tears in his eyes and prayed, "By the stars, by the gods above, and by the light we breathe, take me away, Trojans, anywhere at all. That will be enough. I know I am a Greek who shipped out to Troy. I admit that I fought against the gods of Ilium. If my guilt for that is so great, cut me to pieces and throw me into the sea. At least I will die by human hands."
That's gripping, isn't it?
It is gripping, yeah.
I'd rather be killed by a human being than eaten by this towering monster.
Right. And so the Trojans take them in. And he eventually, Vergil mentions he becomes a guide for them, and so he's not another traitor.
No,
nothing like that.
No,
Yeah.
And then we get the final scene. We see Polyphemus up on the shore.
Right.
And Vergil, as a master of description, every adjective, every verb and noun in just the right spot.
Yeah.
Can I read this part from Lombardo?
Please do.
These words were no sooner out than we saw Polyphemus himself moving his vast bulk down the mountain, a shepherd among his flock. Heading down to the shore he knew too well, a hideous monster hulking in his eyeless dark.
Oh, that's great.
That's a good translation, Stan. He used a lopped pine tree as a walking staff, and his fleecy sheep, his only joy and solace, kept him company. When he reached the water, he washed his oozing eye socket out with brine. That's got to hurt to put that salt water. Right.
Yeah.
But of course, you got to fight infection.
Yep.
Continuing, gritting his teeth and groaning, and then he waded through the open sea, the waves barely wetting his towering flanks. We took our worthy suppliant on board and moved fast to get out of there.
Yeah. And so as we were talking earlier about, Vergil kind of getting us on the edge of these adventures, like he almost teases us with an almost encounter with Polyphemus, but Polyphemus, he's been blinded.
That's right.
And it's almost as if Polyphemus is oblivious to the men there, but they know we're not going to hang around.
But like Sophocles, I'm reminded by this description here of some Sophoclean elements, say in the Oedipus Rex, the very macabre. Did I pronounce that right?
I think you did.
There's a callback.
Macabre?
There's a callback to the first episode. The very macabre description of the death of Jocasta, right?
Yes.
And the Brutus and so forth. And then in the other play, what am I thinking of? It's Euripides. It's Medea. It's the Medea, where Medea poisons Jason's new bride.
Yeah.
I think her name is Glauce.
Glauce, yeah.
And she puts on this garment and she melts in front of his eyes. So the ability to describe grotesqueries is an important poetic register.
Yes.
And Vergil's got it.
He's got it down.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so good. And so from there, it's just a couple more hops now to Carthage. And I thought, and so we're getting right at the end of book 3 now.
Right, because everybody loves book 4. That's where all the passion and drama are.
Exactly right. That's the one everybody knows. So they stop at Aeneas says they stopped at one last sad harbor called Drepanum. And here, I thought this is so interesting. This is where his father dies.
Yes.
And so Anchises has been a fairly main character.
Absolutely, a fixture.
A fixture. And even when he's getting things wrong and misinterpreting oracles, I thought it was so interesting how Vergil, he passes by Anchises' death with just a couple of lines.
Well, we're going to get to book 5 eventually, right?
Yeah.
With the funeral games, and there, in one sense, Anchises gets a whole book.
He does.
But you're absolutely right that this is...
The death itself is...
It's a shocker.
It's a shocker. We don't know how he died. What, I guess old age, I guess?
He's been lame all his life, ever since his love with Venus, and that can't have been good for him. Right,
exactly. But Aeneas says, he says, again, Lombardo, here, I, who had weathered so many storms at sea, here being at Drepanum, lost my father, Anchises, solace of all my cares. Best of fathers, rescued from such great perils in vain, you abandoned me in my weary hour. The seer Helenus foretold of many horrors, but not this grief, and nor did the harpy.
Dire Calino.
Yeah, but that's it.
I really like the way that the Latin expresses it because, Lombardo's translation is great, and I won't read much, but just amitto Anchises, I lost Anchises.
That's it.
Well, there's the description of all the things about how wonderful he was, but like you were saying, the actual death, I lost my dad. Amitto Anchises.
Maybe you could read it that it's so painful that he can't even talk about it, right? If you compare that with all the detail that he just gave throughout the rest of the book, when he talks about his dad.
That's a good point.
As a good dad, he can't talk about it.
So this is understatement.
Yeah.
All of these other things were horrible, like the Cyclops, but the truly horrible things in life are hard to describe.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to take this particular story.
Quint probably already wrote an article on
sure
that,
he did.
so I don't even need to look it up.
Dave. Yeah.
You mean Quint, don't you?
I'm talking about Dave Quint. Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Yes, not you, Dave.
You've been impressed with my puns this evening. So.
Yeah, I have been. Yes. Okay. Hats off. So, and from there, they make it down to Carthage, and that's where the story ends.
And things get steamy in book 4.
Get a little steamy.
That's right.
They get a little tense.
Yes, but we're gonna have to take a break before that, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah, we're gonna do at least one kind of different episode that we insert in here, as we promised the listeners, the audience, that we're not going to just run right through the Aeneid. We're going to take a little break.
We are going to take a little break. Yeah. So I think next episode we should take a little break.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
But we have to. We got to get out of here.
Yep.
Got some people to thank.
We do. Dave, before we go, you want to tell us a little bit about the Moss method?
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Greek and a little bit about the Latin.
Okay.
So the Moss method for Greek will take you from
neophyte to erudite.
That's correct. If you have little or no knowledge of the Greek language, sign up with me, and this program will help you gain a lot of knowledge. It's divided into 4 modules. Each costs $325. Each features 40 video lessons, 1 assignment per lesson, plus quizzes and exams, and of course the office hours,
in which the students can get direct access to you.
Yes, we interact every Friday. Now we had to take this past Friday off for the colloquium, but that's the first one in a long time that we've taken off. We get together on a Friday morning. Typically, we read the New Testament. We can read some Homer. We can read Plato. We've done that before. Some Sophocles. Pretty much anything the students are interested in. If you purchase the Moss course, any one of the modules, you get to interact with me directly.
That's fantastic. So the listeners, those interested, can go to mossmethod.com.
Correct. Check out the free instruction.
You got a lot of free stuff there to check out.
That's right.
Yep.
And also the Latin.
Yep.
So the Lingua Latina per se illustrata, the Hans Orberg textbook. I'm offering a course in this. Unit 1 is the first 9 chapters. And again, you can observe me teaching a I'd like to say live studio audience, like they used to do on the sitcoms.
Right.
Teaching individuals how to read Latin, how to speak Latin, and even how to write some Latin.
So where would they find this?
This is at latinperdiem.com/LLPSI.
Okay.
So one of our sponsors, they published this great textbook. We're hooked up with them, and we're offering this course. It also comes with office hours. Each week, either Friday or Saturday, we get together. Those who are in the course, we study some Latin together.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Excellent. So we got some people to thank?
Yes, we want to thank Mishka Fernando, our sound engineer, our engineeress. She puts this all together so marvelously. Thank you, Mishka.
Yeah, many thanks as always. Also, thanks to Scott Van Zen and Ken Tamplin for the great music you hear throughout the episode.
Yes.
I love Ken's vocal, his reaction videos.
Yeah, they're funny, aren't they?
They're very funny.
The guy really knows how to entertain, and what an amazing voice.
The guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he really does.
He can do the deed. Yeah.
So this week we were listening to a little snippet of the intro music. So the intro music, that great guitar solo by Scott Van Zandt, that's taken from another song I typically listen to. And so as that song, we're listening to it, then we get to that instrumental bridge in the middle. My daughter starts doing the voiceover. Welcome to the ad nauseam. It was pretty funny.
That's fantastic. So, hey, listeners, if you want to shout out, if you want to drop an idea for an episode, if you want to ask a question, do not hesitate to write to us.
Yes, Jeff at adnauseum.com. Don't forget the V.
Or to Dave at adnauseum.com. Don't forget the V. And so next week, we're going to want to keep them on.
We're going to keep them in suspense. That's right.
All right.
Something's coming up in episode 89. We might throw in a couple gurgles before that.
Okay.
But you just got to stay tuned.
Yes. All right.
And Jeff, I think you have the gustatory parting shot to take us out this evening.
Yes, this comes from one of my favorite comedians, Jim Gaffigan, who talks a lot about food.
Yes, he does.
Who once said, if you are over the age of 18, it is impossible to eat alone in a food court and not look like a serial killer.
Oh, my goodness. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.